In the early hours of January 3, 2026, under the cover of darkness, U.S. Special Operations Forces, supported by overwhelming air power, executed a rapid and decisive mission in Caracas, Venezuela. The operation was meticulously planned and executed with precision, aiming to achieve its objectives swiftly. President Nicolás Maduro was apprehended with minimal resistance. The Venezuelan military offered little organized pushback, seemingly caught off guard by the speed and efficiency of the operation. Key government buildings and military sites were secured almost without conflict, leaving Caracas under foreign control by sunrise. The city awoke to a new reality, with foreign troops patrolling the streets and ensuring order. The White House quickly confirmed the operation, framing it as a stabilization mission to restore democratic order. Officials emphasized the necessity of the intervention, citing the need to protect human rights and promote democracy. International reaction was immediate and divided. U.S. allies offered cautious support, while Russia and China condemned the intervention as a violation of sovereignty. The global community was left to grapple with the implications of this bold move. The United Nations convened an emergency session, but consensus proved elusive. The debate highlighted the deep divisions within the international community regarding the legitimacy and consequences of the operation. Maduro was taken into U.S. custody without incident. His location remains undisclosed. The swift capture of the Venezuelan leader marked a significant turning point in the country's political landscape. The operation decapitated Venezuela's government, creating a power vacuum now managed by the U.S. and its partners. The future of Venezuela hangs in the balance as new leadership is sought. Washington's narrative is one of liberation, but the world is watching closely, especially given Venezuela's vast oil reserves. The strategic importance of these resources cannot be overstated, adding another layer of complexity to the unfolding situation. January 3rd has redrawn Latin America's geopolitical map, setting the stage for a new era in global energy politics. The ripple effects of this operation will be felt for years to come, as nations reassess alliances and strategies in response to the shifting power dynamics. Operation Vigilant Falcon's success relied on U.S. air dominance and the quiet cooperation of key Venezuelan military factions. Stealth aircraft and electronic warfare neutralized air defenses and crippled command networks, ensuring U.S. forces faced no aerial threat. Many Venezuelan commanders simply stood down, suggesting prearranged deals and months of covert diplomacy. This internal complicity minimized bloodshed and gave the operation a veneer of local legitimacy. Analysts now scrutinize which military leaders facilitated the transition and what roles they'll play in the new order. The U.S. showcased its technological edge. Drones, cyber attacks, and next-gen communications left little room for resistance. The outcome was never in doubt. The real masterstroke was neutralizing opposition from within. The operation's apparent ease was the result of both overwhelming force and careful internal co-opting. Venezuela sits atop the world's largest proven oil reserves, over 300 billion barrels, surpassing even Saudi Arabia. Most of this oil lies in the Orinoco Belt, a region rich in extra-heavy crude that's challenging but immensely valuable. Decades of mismanagement under Chavez and Maduro left the state oil company PDVSA in ruins and production at historic lows. For the U.S., revitalizing Venezuela's oil sector is a strategic opportunity. Control here means influence over global energy markets. U.S. refineries are built to process Venezuela's heavy crude, making renewed partnership economically attractive. Restoring production would grant Washington leverage over prices and supply chains worldwide. Control of these reserves fundamentally shifts the global energy landscape. The U.S. move in Venezuela is about more than just oil. It's a calculated maneuver in a much larger geopolitical chess game that stretches far beyond the borders of South America. It's a direct challenge to China and Russia's growing influence in Latin America, a region long considered within Washington's sphere of interest. By toppling Maduro, Washington aims to sever Venezuela's deepening ties to Moscow and Beijing, disrupting a network of alliances that threaten U.S. strategic interests. This move puts billions in loans and investments at risk for its rivals, potentially destabilizing their economic foothold in the region and sending shockwaves through their financial strategies. The intervention reasserts the Monroe Doctrine, a centuries-old policy that signals America's intent to keep foreign powers out of its neighborhood. It's a clear warning to others against encroaching in what the US still considers its own backyard, reinforcing red lines for global competitors. Securing Venezuela's oil isn't just about denying it to rivals, it's about gaining leverage over a critical resource that will shape global power for years to come. Controlling these reserves means influencing energy markets and ensuring a steady supply for the US and its allies. The timing is key. As the world transitions to renewables, oil remains vital for the foreseeable future, and whoever controls it holds significant sway. The US is positioning itself to maintain dominance before the global energy landscape shifts irreversibly. This move consolidates US power in the hemisphere, tightening its grip on regional affairs and economic flows. It also sends a powerful message to any nation considering alignment with America's competitors. The US will act decisively to protect its interests. The operation is both a preemptive strike against rival ambitions and a long-term play for resource and geopolitical supremacy, shaping the balance of power for decades. The global energy order has been decisively altered, and the world is now watching to see how the next chapter unfolds. In the aftermath, the White House frames the intervention as liberation and economic revival. Former President Trump openly touts American companies as central to rebuilding Venezuela's oil industry, not expropriation, but partnership. U.S. energy giants are poised for long-term contracts to restore production and infrastructure, promising jobs and revenue for both nations. The plan prioritizes repaying debts to Western allies, while Chinese and Russian claims may be renegotiated or dismissed. This transactional approach embeds U.S. interests deep within Venezuela's future. The public narrative is one of mutual benefit, but the mechanics ensure American economic and strategic dominance. Venezuela's oil is now a pillar of US-led global energy stability. The Venezuela operation draws inevitable comparisons to the 2011 NATO intervention in Libya. There, regime change led to chaos and civil war, a cautionary tale of military success followed by failed state building. US planners aim to avoid Libya's mistakes. This time, they've co-opted parts of the Venezuelan military and outlined a plan for rapid economic recovery. Unlike Libya, Venezuela is in the US sphere of influence, with established opposition groups and years of groundwork for a transition. The focus is on securing infrastructure and installing a functional, friendly government to manage resources in line with US interests. Still, the challenge of rebuilding remains immense. The true test will be whether this hands-on approach can deliver stability where past interventions have failed. The stakes are high, not just for Venezuela, but for the credibility of US-led regime change. Success or failure here will echo far beyond Latin America. With control over Venezuela's oil, the US gains a powerful tool to shape global politics and energy markets. Washington can now influence oil prices, pressuring rivals like Russia and Iran or stabilizing markets for allies. For Europe and Asia, this promises energy security, but also deeper dependence on US goodwill. China, having invested heavily in Venezuela, now faces a major setback and greater reliance on unstable suppliers. The intervention reasserts the primacy of state power over market forces in global energy. The US has turned Venezuela's oil into a lever for projecting power and disciplining rivals. The world's energy map, and the balance of power, has been redrawn. Hard power, not just markets, now shapes the flow of oil. Domestic interests played a major role in the decision to intervene. U.S. Gulf Coast refineries are optimized for Venezuelan crude. Restoring supply boosts profits and lowers costs for American consumers. Energy lobbyists and oil service companies stand to gain billions from contracts to rebuild Venezuela's infrastructure. The operation also appeals to politically influential Venezuelan Americans, especially in Florida, a key swing state. Economic self-interest and political calculus combine to make intervention attractive to Washington. The move aligns powerful corporate, industrial, and electoral interests behind a long-term U.S. presence in Venezuela. The domestic case for intervention was as compelling as the geopolitical one. The U.S. operation in Venezuela marks a dramatic turning point in 21st century geopolitics, sending shockwaves through international relations and altering the balance of power in the Western Hemisphere. By removing Maduro from power and seizing control of Venezuela's vast oil reserves, the U.S. has not only reshaped the global energy order, but also delivered a significant blow to the ambitions of China and Russia, who had invested heavily in the region's resources and political alliances. American allies may now enjoy more stable and predictable energy supplies, but this comes at the cost of greater dependence on Washington's decisions and policies, raising questions about sovereignty and long-term security. For U.S. rivals, the loss of influence in Venezuela is a sobering wake-up call, highlighting the limits of economic leverage and soft power when confronted by decisive U.S. military intervention and strategic action. The future of Venezuela itself remains deeply uncertain. Rebuilding the nation will be a monumental and complex task, fraught with risks of insurgency, political infighting, and widespread public resentment toward foreign involvement. While the military victory was swift and overwhelming, the challenge of nation-building will be far harder, requiring patience, resources, and a genuine commitment to the Venezuelan people's needs. For ordinary Venezuelans, hope and uncertainty now coexist as they face a new era under foreign oversight, wondering if their voices will be heard, and if true change is possible. The world watches anxiously to see whether this bold move will finally bring stability and democracy to Venezuela, or if it will become yet another cautionary tale of intervention gone wrong, repeating the mistakes of the past. The stakes are enormous, not just for Venezuela's future, but for the global debate over interventionist foreign policy and the legitimacy of using force to achieve political goals. The next chapter in global power politics is being written right now in Caracas, with consequences that will echo for years to come.